The price of pride. Have you ever wondered how quickly success can change someone? How power and position can make us forget the people who lifted us up? This is a story about love, sacrifice, and the devastating cost of pride. A story that will make you question what truly matters in life. Marcus was a cab driver in downtown Chicago. Every morning, he'd wake up at 5, kiss his elderly mother goodbye, and hit the streets in his yellow taxi. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest. He drove through rain, snow, and the brutal Chicago winters, just to make ends meet. But Marcus never complained. He had dreams, not for himself, but for the woman he loved. One afternoon, Marcus was driving through the busy streets of the Loop when suddenly, red and blue lights flashed behind him. A traffic cop pulled him over. Marcus's heart sank. He rolled down his window, confused. "Sir, you violated traffic regulations. You'll need to pay a fine," the officer said sternly. Marcus was genuinely puzzled. "Officer, what did I do wrong? I was following all the rules." The cop's expression hardened. "Either pay the fine right now, or we're taking you down to the precinct." For most people, the mention of a police station would have been terrifying, but not for Marcus. When he heard precinct, a flicker of hope lit up in his eyes. "I'm not paying any fine," Marcus said confidently. "Take me to the station." You see, Marcus had a reason to be confident. Just 2 days ago, his wife Sarah had been transferred to that very precinct as a newly promoted police inspector. And it was Marcus who had made that possible. For 5 years, Marcus had driven that cab 16 hours a day. He'd skipped meals, worn the same worn-out jacket, and lived in a tiny apartment with his mother. All of it, every single sacrifice, was so Sarah could go to college, then the police academy, and finally achieve her dream of becoming an inspector. He'd worked himself to exhaustion, watching her climb higher and higher, believing that their struggles would soon be over, believing that she'd remember what he'd done for her. At the station, Marcus was told to sit in a cold metal chair in the waiting area. His heart was beating fast, not from fear, but from anticipation. He couldn't wait to see Sarah's face when she realized what was happening. She'd straighten everything out. She'd tell these officers that her husband hadn't done anything wrong. From the office, he could hear Sarah's voice, sharp and authoritative, talking on the phone. "Stop trying to use my name for favors. I earned this position through hard work and dedication. Don't expect special treatment from me again." The phone slammed down. Moments later, Sarah walked out, her uniform crisp and perfect, her badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. She looked powerful, intimidating. Nothing like the girl Marcus had married. "Why did you bring him in?" Sarah asked the officer, not even glancing at Marcus. "Ma'am, he violated traffic laws and refused to pay the fine." That's when Sarah finally looked at Marcus. Their eyes met. For a split second, Marcus thought he saw recognition. But then her expression turned cold, distant, as if she were looking at a complete stranger. Marcus stared at her, his eyes pleading. "Sarah!" But Sarah's voice cut through the air like ice. "If he won't pay the fine, impound his cab and get him out of here." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He couldn't breathe. The woman he'd sacrificed everything for, the woman he'd put through school by driving that very cab she'd just ordered impounded, was now taking away his only means of survival. "Sarah, please," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Remove him from the premises. Now!" Sarah turned on her heel and walked back into her office, the door slamming shut behind her. Marcus felt the officer's hands on his arms, guiding him toward the exit. His vision blurred with tears. The cab, his livelihood, the vehicle that had paid for Sarah's textbooks, her uniforms, her dreams, was now sitting in an impound lot because of her. He walked home that evening, each step heavier than the last. The Chicago wind cut through his thin jacket, but the cold he felt had nothing to do with the weather. When Marcus stumbled through the door of their small apartment, his mother, Eleanor, was in the kitchen making dinner. She took one look at her son's face and knew something terrible had happened. "Marcus, sweetheart, what's wrong?" He collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. "Mom, Sarah, she didn't recognize me. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. She impounded my cab, the same cab I drove to pay for her education." Eleanor's face fell. She slowly sat down across from her son, reaching for his hands. "Son, do you remember? Right after the wedding, Sarah told us she wanted to continue her education. She said we had to support her financially. I warned you then. But you were so in love. You insisted we help her, even when money was tight. You worked yourself to the bone for her. And now, her voice trailed off. What more was there to say? The pain was written all over Marcus's face. Their 6-year-old son, Tyler, had been in the living room playing with his toy cars. He didn't understand what the adults were talking about, but he sensed the sadness. Tyler had always been closer to his grandmother than to his mother anyway. Sarah was never home. She was always working, always busy, always chasing the next promotion. Tyler barely knew her. Sarah had been given a government-provided apartment near the precinct. She'd moved there alone, claiming the commute from Marcus's place was too long. She rarely came home anymore, and when she did, she acted like she was doing them a favor. The next day came and went. Sarah waited at the station, expecting Marcus to show up with the court paperwork to retrieve his cab. But he never came. Hours passed. Her irritation grew into anger. Finally, unable to contain herself, Sarah drove to Marcus's apartment after her shift. She burst through the door without knocking. The scene inside was painfully ordinary. Marcus was sitting on the floor, gently massaging oil into his mother's gray hair, something he'd done every week since he was a teenager. Little Tyler was nearby, playing happily with his wooden blocks, completely absorbed in building a tower. The child was laughing, content, even though no one was actively watching him. "Are you serious right now?" Sarah's voice exploded into the quiet room. "You're sitting here relaxing while your cab rots in the impound lot. You didn't even bother to come get it." Marcus didn't respond. He just kept working the oil through his mother's hair, his movements slow and deliberate. His eyes, when he finally looked up at Sarah, were empty, hollow, like something inside him had died. Sarah's anger intensified. "And you're letting Tyler just play by himself? What kind of parents are you? Don't you know how to watch a child? What if something happened to him? Who would be responsible then?" That's when Marcus finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Sarah, what are you talking about? Tyler has been raised by my mother since the day he was born. You were too busy with school, then training, then work. Mom knows exactly how to take care of children. She raised me. She's raising your son. So maybe you should stop pretending you know anything about parenting." The truth in his words slapped Sarah across the face. But instead of reflecting, she became defensive, her voice rising to a near shout. "Then why didn't you come get the cab? I made arrangements for you. I was waiting." Marcus slowly stood up, his jaw tight. "If you cared so much, you could have stopped them from impounding it in the first place. You're a police inspector, Sarah. You have authority. You could have looked into what actually happened. But I guess you assumed I was trying to use your position, trying to take advantage of your badge. I wasn't. I didn't break any law. But you didn't even bother to find out." Sarah's eyes blazed. "You uneducated people don't understand how the system works. You don't understand duty or protocol or uneducated?" Marcus's voice finally rose, pain bleeding through every syllable. "I was at the top of my class, Sarah. I had a scholarship to Northwestern, but I gave it all up so you could have your education. So you could wear that uniform you're so proud of." Sarah wasn't listening anymore. She stormed into Tyler's room and began throwing his clothes into a bag, her movements violent and erratic. "I can't stay with ignorant people like you. I can't listen to this garbage anymore." "Mommy, no!" Tyler's small voice cried out. He ran to his grandmother, wrapping his arms around her legs. "I don't want to go with you. I want to stay with Daddy and Grandma." But Sarah didn't stop. She grabbed Tyler's arm and dragged him toward the door, the little boy screaming and reaching back toward his father. "Sarah, please," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Don't do this to him." But she was already gone, Tyler's cries echoing down the stairwell until the building's heavy door slammed shut. When Sarah's parents found out what she'd done, they were horrified. Her father called her immediately. "Sarah, have you lost your mind? Marcus sacrificed everything for you. How can you treat him like this?" But Sarah, drunk on her own authority and success, was unmovable. "I don't need lectures from anyone. I made it on my own." Her parents were so disgusted that they stopped speaking to her. Her younger brother, David, tried reaching out several times, hoping to make her see reason. Each time, she shut him down with cruel words, accusing him of jealousy, of trying to control her life. Slowly, Sarah isolated herself from everyone who'd ever loved her. Meanwhile, Marcus tried to move forward. He took odd jobs, working construction during the day and stocking shelves at a grocery store at night. He hired a nanny to help his mother care for Tyler during Sarah's custody time, a young woman named Maria, who was kind and reliable. 3 months passed. Then one afternoon, something happened that would crack everything wide open. Maria had taken Tyler to the grocery store to pick up some things. By coincidence, Eleanor was shopping there too. The moment Tyler spotted his grandmother across the produce section, he broke free from Maria's hand and ran. "Grandma! Grandma!" Eleanor turned, and her heart nearly exploded with joy and pain. She knelt down as Tyler crashed into her arms, sobbing. "Baby, what's wrong? Why are you crying?" Tyler's little face was streaked with tears, his words tumbling out between gasps. "Grandma, I want to live with you. I don't want to stay with Mommy anymore. There's a bad man who comes to the apartment. He's mean to me. If I don't pretend to sleep, Mommy and the man hit me." Eleanor's blood ran cold. "Tyler, sweetheart, what man? What are you talking about? A man comes over every day after Mommy gets home from work. Sometimes he stays all day on weekends. They lock me in my room and tell me to sleep. If I cry or make noise, they yell at me and hit me. So I pretend to sleep now, Grandma. I close my eyes real tight until they think I'm asleep. Then they laugh really loud and talk for hours. I hate it there. I hate that man. Please take me home." Eleanor's hands were shaking. She wanted to grab Tyler right then and there, to run away with him and never look back. But Maria appeared, gently taking Tyler's hand. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Maria said softly. "Miss Sarah gave me very strict instructions. Tyler is not allowed to go with you or Marcus." Eleanor's heart shattered as she watched her grandson being led away, his small hand reaching back toward her, his eyes begging her to save him. She stood there in the grocery store, tears streaming down her face until she could no longer see him. That night, Eleanor couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. The images of Tyler's tear-stained face haunted her. Finally, she knew she had to tell Marcus the truth. "Son, I saw Tyler today at the store." Marcus looked up from the job listings he'd been studying. "How was he?" Eleanor's voice cracked. "Marcus, he told me things. Terrible things. There's a man at Sarah's apartment. Tyler says this man comes over constantly, and if Tyler doesn't pretend to sleep, they hit him." Marcus stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "What?" "He was crying, begging to come home. He's terrified there." Something shifted in Marcus's eyes. A father's protective fury replaced the defeated sadness that had lived there for months. "I'm going over there, right now." "Marcus, wait. It's late." "I don't care what time it is, Mom. That's my son." The next day was Sunday. Marcus showed up at Sarah's government apartment with his mother by his side. His hand was shaking as he pressed the doorbell. It took several rings before the door finally cracked open. Sarah stood there in her bathrobe, her hair messy, her eyes still heavy with sleep. When she saw Marcus, panic flashed across her face. "What are you doing here?" Eleanor stepped forward. "We came to see our grandson. Is that a crime?" Sarah hesitated, then reluctantly stepped aside. Marcus walked past her into the apartment. What he saw in the bedroom made his blood turn to ice. A man, probably in his 30s, was lying in Sarah's bed, half-dressed. And there, on the far side of the bed, was little Tyler, curled up in a ball, fast asleep. For a moment, Marcus couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt. Then rage, pure and white-hot, exploded through his chest. His hand moved on instinct. The slap across Sarah's face echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. The man in the bed jumped up. "Who the hell do you think you are, putting your hands on her?" Sarah, her cheek bright red, looked at the man and said with complete contempt, "Relax. It's just my useless, uneducated ex-husband." Ex-husband. Marcus's voice was barely audible, shaking with fury and heartbreak. Eleanor grabbed her son's arm. "Marcus, please, control yourself. Get Tyler and let's go." Marcus gently picked up his sleeping son, holding him close to his chest. Tyler stirred but didn't wake. Marcus looked at Sarah one last time. "So this is why you wanted to live separately. This is what you've become." As it turned out, the man was Sarah's senior officer, someone she'd been involved with since her training days. The affair had been going on the entire time. Sarah didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. Instead, She laughed bitterly. I'm glad you finally know. Now I don't have to hide it anymore. I want nothing to do with you, Marcus. You're beneath me. After today, don't ever contact me again. Marcus turned to leave, his son in his arms, his mother at his side. Wait, Sarah called out. She walked over to a drawer and pulled out a manila envelope. I've already had divorce papers drawn up. Sign them before you go. Marcus stared at the papers. His hands trembled as he took the pen. Without reading a word, he signed his name on every line that required it. Then he walked out of that apartment, closing the door on his marriage and the woman he'd once loved more than life itself. Back in his mother's apartment, Marcus sat in the dark. Tyler was asleep in the next room, safe now, but Marcus felt like he was drowning. Eleanor sat beside her son, saying nothing at first. Then, on impulse, she went to her bedroom and returned with an old metal lockbox covered in dust. Marcus, I want to show you something. She opened the box and began pulling out yellowed papers, searching for something specific. Finally, she found it. A deed. What's this, Mom? Eleanor handed him the document. It's a property deed. It belonged to your grandmother. I'd forgotten all about it until now. Marcus studied the paper carefully. His eyes widened. Mom, this property. Do you know where this is? Somewhere outside the city, I think. Your grandmother bought it decades ago. Marcus did some research. 3 days later, he made some calls. What he discovered changed everything. The property had been rezoned for commercial development. Land values in that area had skyrocketed. That forgotten piece of land his grandmother had purchased for almost nothing was now worth millions. Marcus sold the property. When the money hit his account, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Millions of dollars, more money than he'd ever dreamed of having. But Marcus didn't go crazy with it. He bought a modest but comfortable home for his mother, himself, and Tyler. He put money aside for Tyler's education. And then he did something that surprised everyone. He enrolled in college. Marcus had always been brilliant. He'd been at the top of his high school class, had received a full scholarship to Northwestern University. But he'd given it all up for Sarah's dreams. Now, at 32 years old, he decided it was time to chase his own. Eleanor, meanwhile, started a small business making homemade pickles, jams, and baked goods. Maria, the nanny, joined her. The business grew quickly, becoming popular at local farmers markets and specialty stores. Money started flowing in steadily. Marcus threw himself into his studies with a focus he'd never had before. He majored in criminal justice and public administration, taking summer classes and winter courses, compressing what would normally take 4 years into just over 2. During that time, he took the law enforcement exam. He scored in the top 1%. After completing an accelerated program and proving himself through intensive training and examinations, Marcus was selected for an extraordinary fast-track promotion to become a captain in the Chicago Police Department. The local news picked up his story. Former cab driver becomes police captain, a true American success story. The headline went viral. People called him Captain Comeback and the taxi driver captain. Reporters wanted interviews. His face was on the evening news, and Marcus requested his assignment specifically, the same district where Sarah worked. Sarah had not been doing well. Her affair with her superior officer had turned dark. The man was married with 2 kids, and he had no intention of leaving his wife. When Sarah confronted him about their future, he'd laughed at her. You really thought I was going to leave my family for you? Worse, he'd secretly recorded Sarah taking bribes during traffic stops, something he'd encouraged her to do. Now he used those videos to control her, threatening to release them if she ever tried to leave him or expose their affair. Sarah was trapped. She'd become a shell of herself. She stopped eating properly. Her uniforms hung loose on her shrinking frame. She stopped wearing makeup, stopped caring about her appearance. He'd even taken her phone away, isolating her completely. One day, there was a formal ceremony to welcome the new captain to the district. Sarah was required to attend. She showed up looking gaunt and exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. During the ceremony, Sarah was called to the stage to say a few words. As she climbed the steps, the room started spinning. Her vision went black. She collapsed right there on stage, crashing to the floor. Someone called 911. Sarah was rushed to the hospital. Marcus, now Captain Harrison, was there when the ambulance arrived. He saw her being loaded onto the stretcher. For a moment, his breath caught. This couldn't be the same woman. Sarah looked sick, frail, broken. At the hospital, doctors diagnosed severe malnutrition and exhaustion. She'd been systematically destroying herself, trapped in an abusive relationship with nowhere to turn. Sarah lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in years, she thought clearly. She thought about Marcus, about what she'd thrown away, about the price of her pride. A few weeks later, after being released from the hospital, Sarah was walking through downtown when she ran into someone, an older woman carrying shopping bags. "Excuse me," Sarah mumbled. The woman looked up. It was Eleanor. "Ma'am, wait," Sarah said, her voice desperate. "It's me, Sarah. Don't you recognize me?" Eleanor squinted. She barely recognized the thin, haggard woman standing before her. When realization finally dawned, her expression hardened. "I know who you are, and I have nothing to say to you. Please," Sarah begged, tears streaming down her face. "Please, I know I was wrong. I know what I did. Please ask Marcus to forgive me. Please let me come home." Eleanor's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Sarah, you made your choices. You have to live with them. My son and grandson are doing fine without you. I suggest you figure out your own life." She walked away, leaving Sarah standing alone on the sidewalk. The breaking point came a few days later. The officer Sarah had been involved with got promoted and transferred to another city. Before he left, he did exactly what he'd threatened. He released the video of Sarah taking bribes. The video went viral within hours. By the next morning, Sarah was fired from the police force. Her career, her identity, everything she'd sacrificed Marcus for, was gone in an instant. Desperate and alone, Sarah called her brother David. "David, please, I need help. I have nowhere to go." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then David's voice came through, cold and distant. "You broke Mom and Dad's hearts, Sarah. Dad had a heart attack because of the stress you caused. Mom's health failed right after. They both died within months of each other, and you didn't even come to their funerals. You were too busy with your career, your new life. I have no sister anymore." The line went dead. Sarah fell to her knees in her empty apartment. No job, no family, no one. In a last desperate attempt, she showed up at Marcus's new house one evening. She knocked on the door, her hands shaking. Marcus opened it. He looked good, healthy, successful, happy. Behind him, Sarah could see a warm, beautiful home. She could hear Tyler laughing somewhere inside. "Marcus," she whispered. "Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." Marcus looked at the woman he'd once loved. He felt pity, but nothing more. "Sarah, I signed those divorce papers 2 years ago. We're not married. We're not anything. Tyler is happy and healthy, and that's all that matters to me. I've moved on. You need to do the same. Marcus, please. If you come here again, I'll file a restraining order. I mean it, Sarah. It's over." He closed the door gently but firmly. Sarah stood there on the porch as the lights inside glowed warm against the darkening sky. She could hear a family in there. Her family, the family she'd destroyed. She walked away into the night, completely alone. Without a job, money, or family, Sarah's life spiraled downward fast. She couldn't pay rent. She was evicted. She ended up in a homeless shelter, then on the streets. She stopped eating, stopped caring. 3 months later, Sarah's body was found on a bench in Grant Park. The coroner's report said she died of exposure and malnutrition. She was 34 years old. When Marcus got the call, he sat down heavily in his office chair. He didn't cry. He'd cried all his tears for Sarah years ago, but he felt an overwhelming sadness for the waste of it all. For the woman she could have been, for the life they could have had. He made sure she had a proper burial. He even attended the funeral with Tyler, who was now 8 years old and barely remembered his mother. As they walked away from the cemetery, Tyler looked up at his father. "Dad, was Mom a bad person?" Marcus thought, carefully before answering. "No, son. She wasn't bad. She just made bad choices. And sometimes, bad choices have consequences we can't take back." That night, Marcus tucked Tyler into bed, kissed his forehead, and turned off the light. In the hallway, he passed his mother's room. "Good night, Mom." "Good night, sweetheart. I'm proud of you." Marcus smiled. He was proud too. Not because of his rank or his success, but because he'd kept his integrity. He'd kept his heart, and he'd kept his son safe. Success that costs you your humanity isn't success at all. Pride that separates you from the people who loved you isn't pride, it's poison. Moral of the story: never let success change who you are or make you forget the people who helped you rise. Humility, gratitude, and love are worth more than any position or power. The choices we make in moments of pride can haunt us forever. Call to action. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more inspiring and emotional stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, stay humble, stay grateful, and never forget where you came from.